Hey, student success, we made it. This is your video for week 8 of the semester. Week 8 technically runs from July 26th through the 30th. However, if you've seen my previous messages, I've checked your syllabus, you know that the 30th is a Friday. So that's the first thing to be aware of. Please make sure that you submit everything by Friday, July 30th. So because it does close on a Friday, I do open up week 8 a little early. I open up week 8 toward the end of week 7, which depending on when you're watching this video, you've already been alerted to that fact that week 8 was opening early. So you really do have July 23rd through the 30th to work on it. So again, please make sure you complete week 8 by Friday, July 30th. That is when the entire course will close. I will have grades pretty much wrapped up that night, at the latest the next morning, depending on when everyone submits everything. So just kind of making aware of that closing date. Also, just a couple quick things. Week 1 has already been reopened. A couple of you were able to take advantage of that. Week 2 was reopened as well back in week 7. Week 3 is going to reopen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of week 8. So this was the career services week, and there was a 30-point assignment in there. There's a 20-point assignment in there. There were a couple big point assignments. So if you missed week 3, that would be a great opportunity for you to go in and get some points back. That is just going to be reopened that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of week 8. So 26, 27, 28, week 3 will be reopened. And then as I said, week 8 is opening a little early on the 23rd, closes on Friday the 30th. So you have an opportunity to wrap up the course early. Okay, so week 8, we're in 2 chapters, chapter 3 and chapter 9. There are 2 assignments, and this is going to be like week 7 where there's no discussion forum. So instead you have to complete both assignments. So your attendance is based on completing both assignments by Friday, July 30th. So if you only complete one, you only get half attendance. So let's go ahead and go into the materials folder. So in here, I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of like the materials that go along with these chapters. You can certainly use them if you want. Chapter 3 material is a Prezi, so you are welcome to kind of look through that for a little bit more information. And chapter 9, to me, these slides are helpful, but they're not all applicable because, at least not to Stark State. Now, if you're a CCP student and you're going to a 4-year university that has like dorms and things like that afterwards, fine. This is going to apply a little bit more because it does talk about like roommates and things like that, which is why I don't spend a lot of time using this particular resource, but it is there for you if you would like to use it. So instead, I'm just going to kind of go through the actual chapters. So chapter 3 is thinking. All about thinking. Let me get to there we go. Thinking about thought. So there's a little bit, again, as usual, the pre-questions, assessment questions, kind of thinking about where you are, what you know about this. And then the fact that, high school and college thinking is a little bit differently. The types of tests are different. The types of information that's being asked of you to remember is different. The types of facts that you're being presented. So it's just knowing that there are expectations different in terms of it thinking. So one of the first things it talks about is Bloom's taxonomy. And this is a really common model of thinking used primarily in education, but you may see these in other areas. So Bloom's taxonomy is often like presented in like a triangle format, if you will, but right here it's just in a table format. And this is basically different ways of knowing. And so this is the basic way. We have to remember and recall what we know. That's the building block of knowing and understanding. And then from there, if we remember it and we can recall it, we can understand it, to apply it, analyze it, evaluate it, and create. And you can see all the kind of verbs that go along with each of these. This point being that, different assignments and different classes will have you use different levels of knowing, and kind of like the ultimate way of demonstrating your knowledge is through creating something new. So this is Bloom's taxonomy. Again, this is going to say, you're going to use these skills in different areas, different classes in different ways. And this is kind of a, when have you use these different levels of knowing. Have you used it recently? When do you think you could use it? If you wanted to kind of just think about it. And here are, again, more verbs to go along with each of those ways of knowing. Your test questions in different classes will also be based on Bloom's taxonomy, really, if you get down to it, because it's going to ask you to either understand something, it's going to ask you to analyze something, it's going to ask you to create something. So Bloom's taxonomy actually plays a huge role, which is why it's often mostly closely related to education, like pedagogy and things like that, because when teachers are teaching and assessing, all of these levels are going into that thought process on how to communicate information and how to assess that information. Okay. The next section talks about critical thinking. So this goes on to say, you know, we have access to just a boatload of information. And so what do we do with that? Well, we have to be critical with the information. We have to really not take things for surface level. We have to really dig deeper and try to understand it. So what does that mean? Well, it kind of goes through what they call the critical thinking process. So if you are presented with information or a problem or a decision or something like that, this is the process that it considers or it encourages you to go through. What is the problem? What is the issue? What is the position? What is the topic? Whatever it might be. What are your options or choices? You know, do you have to look at sides? Do you have to look at decisions? Do you have to look at possible, you know, pros, cons? What do you know about those different options? How good is the information? I think this part right here is so important because, again, having such great access to so much information at the tips of our fingertips, literally like on our phone, on our computer, we have so much information, but how good is that information? We have to look and see, you know, who's the author? What's the source? What's their purpose? What is their bias present? Are there any fallacies or like argument weaknesses? So this is, for me, such a key part of it. Knowing the reliability, the credibility, all those different aspects of it. And so when we say fallacies, what does that mean? When you look at someone's argument, so to speak, if they're trying to present an issue and they have, like, you know, they're on a side of an issue, and this can be on so many different areas, but oftentimes we do see this like in politics, right? People are trying to present their argument. Well, they often fall into these fallacies. Sometimes people will make generalizations. They make an assumption about a whole group based on just like a small sample or even just one person. Here's an example. Engineering students are nerds. So, I mean, that's a generalization, right? Do you know every single engineering student ever? A false cause, you know, if A comes before B, then A causes B. Sometimes there's not always those direct connections. Personalizations, you know, if you're trying to attack someone personally, because of their personal life versus what the argument they're trying to make, the everyone does it argument, appealing to authority, weaken out. So all of these kind of go through like all of these different weaknesses in arguments. Okay. Here are also some things to take in consideration, some critical thinking situations where you're going to have to apply critical thinking skills. As a student, obviously, I think right here is going to be a big chunk of it. When are you going to have to be critical thinking? Research in particular, when you're trying to find information, come to your own conclusion, and really having to, again, look at the sources you're gathering, look for bias, look for the point of view and the purpose. That's really going to involve a lot of critical thinking. Okay, so this again gives you kind of some more tips talking about reliability, credibility. This in particular talks about those sources, especially if you're looking something online, because as we know, anyone can upload anything they want online. So you want to look at information like the URL. Is it a .com, .gov? Who wrote the information? Is it being, are there advertisements? What's the purpose? So again, these are all really great tips on evaluating information. This next section talks about a little bit of like creative thinking, which one of your assignments this week, chapter 3, is going to deal with creative thinking. So how to be a creative thinker. Creative thinking is not just a natural skill. You can learn to be creative. So here are creative thinking tips. You know, feed your curiosity, read, take in information, no matter what that looks like. Be flexible with your answers, with your definition of what is right and wrong. Combine old things into new ways. This kind of reminds me of a quote that, you know, there are no such things as new inventions. Some people believe that because so many things have already been created that there's nothing out there that's original. So maybe this is like combining old ideas into new ways, kind of being creative with what's already out there. Think in metaphors and ask lots of questions. Those are all ways to be creative thinkers. And of course, there's more information in there you can spend more time with. The next section is problem solving and decision making, which obviously is part of the thinking process, and sometimes this involves creative and critical thinking to be able to solve problems. And this is a process to go through to make sure that anytime you have a big decision to make, you're doing so after thorough thought. So defining the problem, maybe your decision, I'll go back in time, so to speak, your decision to go to Stark State. What's the problem? Okay, well, I need to decide where to go to college. I have lots of options, so narrow the problem down. Okay, well, I have 5 options. And really look at those potential and look at the possibilities of each one, the pros, the cons, generate possible solutions. Look at, if you go here, what does this look like? So really thinking through, choose that solution. And then what I always like to say also is reflect on it then. After you've made the decision, so you're here, you've made your decision, reflect on it. Was it a good decision for you? If you had to make the decision again, would you make the same one? So this really goes into more detail about decision making. So that is chapter 3. The next section, chapter 9, is the social world of college. And again, if you're here at Stark State, some of this applies to 2-year, 4-year, doesn't matter. Some of it applies only to 4-year. This is a quick assessment. Again, just kind of seeing where you already are. Section 9.1, getting along with others, which I know as adults, it kind of is like, shouldn't we know how to get along with other people? But I think it's been proven time and time again that adults don't always necessarily get along any better than children sometimes. And I'm sure you've witnessed that in your own life with people you know, or TV, or whatever the case is. So this talks about how we really are social in nature, humans. So we need to be able to kind of recognize the importance of interacting with other people, as well as valuing it and knowing how to grow and utilize that interaction. So maybe you struggle with meeting new people, making new friends. There's some kind of tips there for that. If you're a shy person, communication is important no matter what field you're in. And it's not just oral communication. We've got nonverbal, we've got body language. And so this talks about the importance of really kind of being aware of those different kinds of communication and how errors can come across. Also, communicating, online is another type of communication because people can't see your face or hear the inflection in your voice. So making sure that you are presenting yourself in a way that can be most easily understood. So here are, again, some more tips. Try to be an active listener, not just wait your turn to talk. So talk less, listen more, ask a lot of questions, look at body language, give feedback. And so this is going to, how do you effectively communicate and speak? It's going to give you some more tips here. And again, I always encourage you, I do an overview here, read more in depth, especially if you see an area that you're just like, I really need help with this. And this kind of goes into what I was just talking about, communicating online, how you can be clear with your communication, especially in a world where so much of it, obviously our class is all online. How can you make sure that your message is being received the way that you were intending it to? So this goes into that. This is going to talk a little bit about balancing schoolwork and social life. Again, depending on where you are in your life, you may not have so much time for social. It's important for everyone to have time for yourself, time for your friends and family. So you do need to try to balance that out. And so this is going to talk, and it's going to link you to, different chapters that talked about these things, working on your time management, working on your study skills, reduce temptations, whether that, maybe if Netflix is a temptation, deleting it off your phone for a while, taking the apps off your TVs and your phone so it's not there. Or, setting boundaries and all those kind of things are ways to kind of help find that balance. And this is obviously Greek life if you're on a 4-year campus at some point. This is talking about resolving conflicts if you feel like, and they bring back a little bit of the Greek life thing, but I think some of these conflicts can be more applicable to a larger scale than that. Roommate issues, again, if you're a CCP student and you end up at a 4-year university with roommate issues, but I mean, some adults, you have roommates. I have roommates. I have little people in my house. So sometimes I have to really understand how to communicate with my children, especially, you know, like when my roommate refuses to do things that allow me to sleep, you know, they want to stay up. So, I mean, some of this actually applies to children. So kind of funny. Anyway, so and this talks about dealing with harassment. Again, this is kind of talking about the roommate. It kind of phases in, but then it also talks about the workplace, how you can deal with different types of harassment, and where to go. You know, on the campus, our campus, we talk about Title IX and things of that nature, and how you can have people on campus you can go to for those. Social relationships, again, I really encourage you to spend time wherever you feel like you need to kind of focus your attention. This section talks about diversity. You know, diversity applies to so many different things. Think about how we are all diverse, and not just what comes to mind physically, because we can obviously, our racial diversities, our gender diversities, our ethnic diversities, okay, but what about our veteran status? What about our traditional versus non-traditional status? What about our geographic location? Like all those different things refer to our diversity. It's all of these different experiences and characteristics, and those are what kind of enrich our experiences as humans. And so just being aware that diversity actually goes a lot deeper than what a lot of people realize at first. And so this section talks about, you know, what does diversity really mean and how we can value diversity. And again, this goes into, look at this, race, ethnicity, culture, education, geography, socioeconomic, gender, age, sexual orientation, religion, political, I mean, oh my goodness. So lots of ways that we can be diverse, and this kind of defines each of those. And just, I think, keeping in mind sometimes that when you're speaking to people, you can't assume that they have the same background and experiences as you, even if they even look somewhat like you, or maybe they're a similar age as you or live near you. So taking in and understanding and respecting that we all have these diverse experiences, and because of those, we can really enrich one another's perspectives. So this talks about the benefits of diversity. I will always, like, when I went through my doctoral program, I had what we called a critical friend. We had critical groups of peers who would help us look at our papers and give us feedback. He was from Bangladesh. And so whenever he and one other classmate and I would get together, two of us were American and he was obviously not, and we would talk about things, he would always say, but here's how I see it. You know, he was kind of an outsider in terms of our American point of view, because we obviously live in America. That was our perspective, but he was able to talk about things from a different perspective that really allowed us to broaden our understanding of certain concepts, and that really benefited my learning as well. And I think we, you know, it was reciprocal. We benefited his learning also. So this goes through a lot of like just the reasons that diversity is so important. We learn so much from other people who are different from us. Broader range of methods. There's just, again, lots of this says, you know, we break patterns of segregation when we value diversity. When we have people from diverse backgrounds, ages, cultures, again, that just allows us to really grow intellectually, socially, emotionally. And it also teaches about ourselves. So lots of benefits to that. So this goes into, again, a little bit more of what diversity is, how we can celebrate and accept it, how as a student we can kind of look for that and seek out those experiences and be with people who are diverse from us to enrich our own experiences as well. All right, and then finally this last section talks about campus groups and how to be kind of involved on campus, the benefit of being involved on campus. Vincent Tinto, who is based out of Syracuse University in New York, does research on community colleges in particular. He calls community colleges PCP, which I know might sound alarming at first, but parking lot, campus, parking lot, whenever we're, you know, on a traditional on-campus model. He says that often because of this, kids, students, adults are driving from home to school and they're not interacting a lot. And a key to helping that is getting involved, because if you're just driving to school and going home, you're not connected, you're not making interactions, you're not networking. So if you can get involved in campus groups in particular, clubs, organizations, it's obviously going to help your resume and your kind of building towards your career, but it's also going to help you feel connected to your campus, which leads to greater retention and higher GPA and more likelihood to graduate. And there's lots of research based on these theories of being involved on campus. And so I'm going to encourage you to read this, but I'm just going to take you right to the page where it talks about our student organizations. So if you're at our Stark State homepage and you go under info for current students, I'm just going to start there and scroll down. There's a link for student clubs. You can click on this link right here. Here are all of our student organizations on campus. Some people don't know that we actually have, over 50 organizations. Now, again, because of COVID, things have slowed down, but hopefully this coming year, it'll pick back up again. But you can see, look at all this. Some of it is really related to, obviously, like dental hygiene. That's related to a major. Some of it, it's just for fun, Stark State Theater. So whenever you have a few minutes, maybe scroll through this list. And if something catches your attention, just click on it. Read the little description. It'll tell you who the advisor is and how to contact them if you are really interested. Again, it looks great on your resume. Even if it's not for your degree, it still looks great on your resume that you were involved. And if it is degree related, that even helps you, again, get those connections. So that is your chapter 9. All right, let's talk about your 2 assignments that are due Friday, July 30th. Assignments, here we go. Chapter 3 assignment. Okay, so in this assignment, you're going to create a list of 3 alternative uses. So what you're going to do is, I would maybe pull up a Word document if you want to, or you can just kind of have this up and going and write submission, have it ready. Anyway, a list of 3 alternate uses for peanut butter, paper clips, and pen caps. Okay, so maybe on scrap paper, take it out. If you wanted to type it in the Word document to have it, you can, but write down 3 other uses for peanut butter other than eating, 3 other uses for paper clips other than clipping paper together, and 3 other uses for pen caps other than putting the caps on pens. Then, step 2, gather a group of other people. So maybe you live with some people, or you can just call someone, or if you happen to be near someone, and just real quickly ask their ideas on how to come up with, what are 3 alternate uses for each of those items. So they are brainstorming. Try not to use your ideas from your original list. Okay, so it says in this activity, do not use your ideas from number 1. Only write down the ideas the group members generated. So if a group member writes down a list or an item that you came up with, you're not going to use that on your list. Okay, so now you have 2 sets of lists. The list that you came up with on your own and the list that a group of your other friends or family members came up with. Now, here's what you're going to respond to. Compare the results of the group with your own ideas and answer the following questions. Did you generate more ideas or did the group? Did the quality of the ideas improve in the group? Were the group ideas more innovative? And which was more fun, creating your own list or kind of overseeing the group ideas? So those are the 3 questions you're going to answer right here. And for context, you can definitely tell me what your ideas were. You can say, for example, here's what I came up with, but here's what the group came up with. That always helps, gives me a little bit of context, so I kind of know what you're referring to when you answer these questions. So that is your chapter 3 assignment. Okay, so it outlines it right there. Your second assignment that deals with chapter 9 is your cultural intelligence survey. So this is one of those automatically graded ones. You have to make sure it goes through all the way to the very end. So you'll click on it. It's going to talk to you.
Intelligence plays a
And you're going to just scroll through and it's going to ask you questions. And again, make sure your very last slide goes all the way through the end and you hit submit so that a grade gets recorded into the grade book. So those are your 2 assignments. So quick recap, spend some time looking over the chapter 3 and chapter 9 materials and complete your chapter 3 assignment on the alternate uses of those 3 objects and your cultural intelligence survey. Also, if you have not filled out your student evaluation for this course, please do so. If you scroll over on my survey dashboard, that is where the course evaluation is, and I won't get that back until probably mid-August or so. So again, please make sure that you submit both of these assignments by Friday, July 30th. That's when the course will close. Whenever you have done that and I see that your grade is wrapped up, I will email you and let you know how you did so you know ahead of time before grades are posted. And I just want to thank you all for a great summer semester. I hope that it was helpful. You learned something, you interacted. And if you ever need anything else while you're on campus, please shoot me an email. Stop by now that we're going to be back in the fall. And I hope you have a great rest of the summer. Bye.